Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host 𝙒𝙖 Iyer. Today I have with me Shekhar Iyer, and we're going to talk about what has been happening in the presidential and vice presidential elections of India. The voting has started, and the interesting things happening across the states. And we will hear from him on a blow by blow as to how he sees each state voting. What about cross voting? How can people cross vote? All sort of stuff. Let's welcome Sri Shekhar Iyer ji. Shekhar ji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Shri Iyer. It's a pleasure again to be with you and your viewers.
Thank you, sir. The pleasure is all ours. Viewers, in case you are curious, I'm standing behind or in front of Oracle headquarters, soon to move the entire thing lock, stock, and barrel to Texas. So these iconic buildings, which were shaped in the form of discs. If you open a hard disk drive, you will see those discs. That's what is the shape of this building. But soon to be, it's going to be a history. Anyway, just wanted to tell you that fact. Shekhar ji, please take it away, sir, and let us know, tell us how things are going in the presidential elections.
Well, yesterday, that is the Monday, the July the 18th, was the voting for the president. And we have seen a phenomenal voting figures across states. Some at least a half a dozen states have reported 100% turnout, and overall turnout is around 99%, which shows great enthusiasm and great mobilization of voters in the electoral college, which comprises of Lok Sabha members, Rajya Sabha members, as well as 4,000 and odd state legislators. And it's a clear, the game is for Draupadi Murmu. She is all set to become India's first tribal president. And Yashwant Sinha, who was put up as a joint opposition candidate, well, his campaign floundered midway, and we haven't heard much, excepting that Yashwant Sinha has already prepared, alibi for his, expected loss. He has been talking about money playing a role. He has been talking about, in fact, he is very much disappointed. The party which he belonged to before he entered the fray, the Trinamool Congress, was not very enthusiastic about his campaign, and Mamata even told him not to visit Bengal, saying she would take care. But we hear it is in Bengal, the Trinamool Congress MLAs were given a free hand to, they could vote for Murmu if they so felt like, particularly those belonging to the districts in southern Bengal where the Santals, the Santal community to which Draupadi Murmu also belongs. So, you are seeing a situation where Mamata entered this whole presidential election with lot of gusto, wanting to take initiative and take over the leadership, so as to send a message that she is the person to reckon with in the run up to the next parliamentary elections in 2024. But after the announcement of Murmu, somehow Mamata has lost interest, I would say, and above other things, that the mysterious meeting that took place in Darjeeling Raj Bhavan, where Jagdeep Dhankar, who has just been announced as the NDA's vice presidential candidate, hosted high tea for her and, of all people, Hemanta Biswa Sharma, who is the Chief Minister of Assam. Now, what they discussed, nobody knows. Well, the governor was there for the launch of that, Gorkha Territorial Council, for which Mamta had also gone. But both the leaders stayed on in Rajbhavan for more than 2 hours, and God knows what they discussed. There's a lot of buzz, that this could be a precursor to eventually Mamata, and BJP, possible trying to go for some kind of a peace pact where they would not get after each other's throat. But in turn, Mamata probably expect that she will get some relief for her party leaders who have been facing series of investigation into money laundering, into disproportionate assets, etc., etc. So this is on one side. But overall, what I am seeing is this election is, as we discussed last time, in many ways similar to the 1969 presidential election, which turned the national politics. Here again, what we are seeing is this support that has come from, say, the Biju Janata Dal, from Telugu Desam, from YSR, the Congress party headed by Jagan Mohan Reddy of Andhra Pradesh, and also from Shiv Sena. Shiv Sena is, of course, is a different story altogether. And several other parties who have come, even allies of Samajwadi Party in Uttar Pradesh like Om Prakash Rajbar. And Rajbar was strongly anti-BJP in the last assembly elections. He fought the elections in alliance with Samajwadi Party. Now he has been saying last 2 days, look, my party, which has 6 legislators in Uttar Pradesh, voted for Murmu because Murmu sought my votes. Nobody sought on behalf of Yashwant Sinha. I mean, this is a very, very interesting statement and which goes to show what we are understanding is some of the MLAs who voted for Murmu, MLAs belonging to the opposition parties like NCP, to Congress, some of them have gone on record to say that, look, we supported Murmu because we could not back Yashwant Sinha. And we wanted to be part of the history that we contributed to making her India's first tribal president. Now, this kind of declaration comes because presidential elections, no party can issue a fiat, no party can issue a whip. So therefore, no action can be taken on the basis of this. So this is a very, very interesting election where Draupadi Murmu is all set to become India's 16th president and first India's tribal president. So that's the scenario which is coming. We saw just a few days ago, Jagdeep Dhankar, the West Bengal governor of all people, has been named as the NDA candidate. He's a Jat leader belonging to Rajasthan. BJP has been looking at that community ever since the farmers' agitation created a lot of rift between the community and the BJP. And his selection is seen as, in terms of a social reach out. But more than that, I think the Prime Minister Modi chose Jagdeep Dhankar for the simple reason he's a person who can withstand pressure, as was seen in West Bengal, where he stayed put despite Trinamool Congress launching an all-out attack on him. Sometimes it was even physical. Several times they garrowed his car, and he was a person who did not mince words when political violence took place soon after the assembly elections in 2021. So the Prime Minister would want Jagdeep Dhankar as chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, because whoever is the vice president is also ex officio chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, to conduct that house, because that is a house where the BJP doesn't have enough numbers and opposition is very, very aggressive to the point being totally unruly. We saw last year scenes like, the Trinamool Congress members particularly climbing onto their chair, throwing books, throwing records, things like that. And 12 of them, 12 opposition members of parliament had to be suspended, for the rest of the session. A task which Vice President Venkaiah Naidu did it very reluctantly. In fact, he said, well, I had to do it because the government side was insisting that a precedent must be set and some kind of punishment, an exemplary punishment is required. So that's the kind of scenario. But what I'm looking at is, post these elections, we could see a stage where the NDA may actually expand. And some of these parties are doing, of course, they say that they've done this just for sake of Murmu. And this is just one time thing. But I can see a lot of thaw in the relations between BJP and these parties. Like, for instance, with Naveen Patnaik. See, there is a post of Deputy Speaker in the Lok Sabha which has been vacant ever since the last parliamentary elections took place in 2019. That there are a lot of possibilities that Prime Minister Modi could offer this post of Deputy Speaker of the Lok Sabha to the Biju Janata Dal. And here the senior BJD leader, Bhaturi Bhatab, could make it if an offer is made and Naveen Patnaik accepts it. See, gradually you are seeing that non-BJP parties, who face opposition from BJP in their states, are looking at a scenario where they can do business with Prime Minister Modi, with BJP, without conceding any ground in their home states. Take for instance Jagannath Reddy. The Jagannath Reddy has had no challenge whatsoever. The TDP has collapsed. Chandrababu Naidu has been ruining the day he joined hands with Congress. Before the last election, that was in 2019, and since then, his party has been unable to recover. And the Jagannath Reddy's party has been winning elections, and BJP wants to be that alternative force there. So there are clashing interests, there are clashing ambitions, because BJP wants a firm foothold in the south to make up for any losses that may happen in the north. But nevertheless, parties are looking at a scenario where there is BJP being the main pole, and the other parties, like it used to be during the Indira Gandhi's time. Lal Krishna Advani used to say, when the BJP came to power in 1998, then from 1999 to 2004, he came with this bipolar political situation. There are two poles. One is BJP headed and the other is the Congress headed. Now we are seeing that Congress headed pole is virtually crumbling or has crumbled in most states. So therefore, the regional parties, if they can protect the turf, they're looking at ways how they can do business with BJP. This is the scenario I see, as months go by. You have the next round of elections in Himachal and Gujarat this year, and a second round in April next year, when you have states like Karnataka, Tripura, and a couple of other states in the northeast going to polls. And at the end of 2023, you have, of course, other major states going to poll, which is Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, so on.
Thank you for the 360-degree view. I beg your pardon. One question I have, Shekharji, is the election for vice president and president. See, when the states are electing, some states do not have a legislative council, others do. Do the legislative council members also elect the president?
No, they don't, because the electoral college for the president comprises only of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha and the state legislatures, I mean the state assemblies, not the state council. And
Okay.
for the election of the vice president, it is only members of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So
I
this
see.
is a more,
I see.
this is more a direct election, whereas the presidential election is a single transferable vote and proportional representation in terms of each member of parliament and each member of the state legislature has a value for his vote depending on the size of the state and the population of the state. That's why the computing of that presidential election is a little more complicated, involves a lot more arithmetic, where you will have to establish the value of the votes and the total value of the votes polled of those 10 lakh and odd, which is the total votes there. Of course, in terms of electors, it comes to about 4,800.
Wonderful. You actually answered my next question about weightage. You've already done that. Thank you so much, Shekharji. I want to take a step back for a second, and I want to take a look at what has been happening in terms of the number of people representing India in the Lok Sabha. 542 seats. That has not changed for 50 years now. Now, there is a census. I think it has started, or it is going to start. It should have started in 2021. It didn't happen, but at least this year it might happen. After that computation is done, I am hearing, and I could be wrong about this, and this is a good way to look at things, that you have to have a member of parliament in Lok Sabha for every 10 lakh voters. 10 lakh. And if you look at that as your yardstick, you have, let's say, 1.4 billion population. I'm just giving mota, sir. It doesn't have to be exact. Let's say 1 billion can vote, because now voting age is 18. Even I think it's more than that. So you're looking at probably 1,000 seats for the parliament. Do you think something like that? That's why the new building is being built, because they need more people represented. Do you think some states will be unhappy because, see, it's a scaling from 542 to 1,000. Not everybody is going to scale double because of the rates of population growth. Now, what those people who are going to see less are going to complain to the center is, look, we implemented family planning the way you wanted, and now you are penalizing us. What are your thoughts?
Well, that is one of the reasons why this exercise has been put off, every time. But of course, finally, that it has to be done by 2026. That's what the last constitutional amendment was done, that the delimitation exercise would be done on the basis of population, because the last time when it was done, they did change the number of seats. The number of seats remained 543 for Lok Sabha, but accepting the geographical boundaries of the constituencies were changed. So some seats which were earlier reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes became general seats, or some general seats became the reserved seats. But this time around, I think when they do this, of course, first the census has to take place. The census has already been delayed by 2 years on account of COVID. Eventually, people expect it to start sometime next year. If it is done, I think probably around 2025, it may not affect the next general election in 2024, but probably after that, this exercise has to be completed unless they sit together again and get it postponed. But as you mentioned rightly, the fact that the new building has been designed in such a way, the new parliament, to hold at least 1,000 and odd members of the Lok Sabha, so that it has modern conference systems, it has modern, and also the Prime Minister is very keen that it doesn't have a well of the house. You often hear headlines saying members trooped into the well of the house. I believe the new house may not have such a situation where the unruly members can troop into the well, because they will have to be firmly seated and speak while sitting or standing, whatever is suitable to them. And because you've often heard headlines like, members broke the mic or something. I think these will have very powerful microphones which will be embedded on the desk. So there is no question of muscle power with those, displaying your muscle power with the microphone. So there are a lot of going to be things and it's going to be entirely paperless, because that's the way they want to go about it. So a new parliament, actually, the Prime Minister wants to bring in a new work culture, a paperless with lot of support system of technology, so that facts and figures are available to the members at the touch of the screen. And there are more informed debates than either to what we are seeing. Because even today, if you see Sri Iyer for the last 2 days, there have been controversies which don't make sense. Take, for instance, today's controversy about the new scheme to recruit boys for the armed forces, having a provision for caste and religion. This is not new. This has been there. In fact, the army came out with clarification. And, ironically, the parties which want caste census in the country, parties who swear by caste-based politics, were making hue and cry over this today, saying that, why are you insisting on caste? Why are you insisting on religion? And, in Bihar, Nitish Kumar is spearheading the move along with his rival RJD, that there should be a caste-based census. Because the whole idea is to somehow bring back caste as a denominator, so that their politics is furthered, because they are losing their way in the current kind of politics. Where there is a BJP, which is very clear, stands for, it doesn't stand for a particular section, but definitely it is not against the Hindus, or it is not against the majority of the community. So with this patterns changing, the caste-based parties are losing their way. They have lost ideas. They still go back to these controversies. A few days ago, you had the other controversy where they made out that some list of words have come out, where parliamentary words, unparliamentary words. That is again a bogus controversy, because this is all to do with what gets into the record. And I can tell you, Shri Iyerji, no researcher looks at those records. No researcher. Because everybody would go by the press clippings and media reports of a particular debate on any interesting subject, if he or she wants to do a research. So what was compiled was not for public distribution. This was meant for the records office. Because often what happens, a member of parliament says something in the heat of the moment or the heat of the debate. The other side or somebody opposes saying, you should not be saying this. Like, you can't say that Hindi walas are pani puri sellers in Tamil Nadu. They only sell pani puris. Like the comment that was made in Tamil Nadu. Suppose that statement was repeated in the Lok Sabha, and any North Indian member of parliament opposes saying that you can't brand us as pani puri sellers, then he would have said it. The person who says it would have said it. It would have gone live. It may even get reported. But the speaker at the end of the day goes to the record on an objection made by the other members, and then it is removed from the record. That's all. Because
expunged.
Expunged, and the message goes to the media to remove it. But often, by the time the message goes, it has already got into print or already telecast. So this was another bogus controversy. Similarly, there is a routine, circular which says before the start of parliament session, the two things happen before start of parliament session. Delhi police routinely imposes section 144 under CRPC, which is, no more than 5 persons can, assemble at any given spot. This is around the parliament area, This is again a routine thing. But you have heard of demonstration taking place, trying to break the police barricades. That's one. Second thing is, inside the parliament house too, they say no religious things should be done, no political demonstration and all that. But then who follows it? Every day these opposition members go and sit before the statue of Gandhiji for photo opportunity, and hold their placards. I mean, this is a routine thing going on. Nobody stops anything. But the opposition is desperate, to somehow bring a narrative that, things are changing under Modi, we are losing our voice. See, the whole problem is what their opposition losing is in the elections. And they are very surprised why issues, because a Congress leader told me, I can't understand this. Why doesn't the Indian public even react to inflation? Why does it even react to LPG prices going up? Of course, when petrol prices went, nobody. And now today they have taken up the fall of the rupee, which is again another. They say, look, the rupee is falling. Why is Modi silent? And they even playing his old statements when rupee was falling. So the whole opposition problem is, what do we do to get the Indian belly on fire? So why don't the our Janta Janardhan is not reacting to all these things? See, there is a crisis of confidence and crisis of credibility in the opposition with such issues, because they made a big deal about this Agniveer or the Agnipath, the new way of recruiting soldiers and sailors and airmen. You see, despite all that, and there were miscreants at work in particularly in Bihar, states like Bihar, where I believe there is a lot of suspicion that some of the ruling Janata Dal people were behind such violence, and very little action has been taken to nab those miscreants. But despite that, when the recruitment process began, the number of people applying for this has already crossed. I'm told more than near about 8 lakhs. 800,000, 800 to 900,000 people applying for just 45,000 jobs. Though it
One
is
in
going to be
20.
only for 4 years. Yes.
1 in 20.
So this is the kind of scene. So the opposition is at loss of ideas, at the loss of that is why even this vice president election. See, finally they thought of Margaret Alva. I wish they had thought of Margaret Alva to counter Draupadi Murmu. They brought Yashwant Sinha, whose only USP was that since last 4 years he has been projecting himself as a bitter critic of Prime Minister Modi. Of course, this time the intention of the opposition to project Margaret Alva has been that they want to bring a north-south kind of thing, and also they are quietly emphasizing the fact that she's a Catholic from Bangalore, and that we are projecting we are for the minorities. That kind of debate they want. But I do not know how far it is, because all that the media has been highlighting is, except from her book and the interview she gave, where she had said that money was asked from her to get a ticket for her son, to get a Congress ticket. Of course, the fact is today Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, they have all swallowed that and accepted other parties choosing Margaret Alva as a joint opposition candidate against Jagdeep Dhankar. This is the irony in which you are seeing the opposition parties today.
So let's take a look at the candidacy of Jagdeep Dhankhar. Very interesting decision, given that Mr. Dhankhar is not exactly known as a Modi Bhakt. I'm using it in a very loose way. I'm not saying that you can have respect for the Prime Minister of the country, but there's slight difference between respect to the Prime Minister and respect to a personality. So Modi has actually taken a look beyond all these things, and he has chosen Jagdeep Dhankar. He is a constitutional expert also. He's a very good lawyer. He can conduct Rajya Sabha with a fair amount of discipline and decorum. And in my opinion, anybody who's doing anything out of turn should be at least dismissed out for the day, and then whatever. There is a procedure that needs to be followed. You said about new parliament being difficult to damage. Maybe they should also have seat belts that can engage automatically and keep the people restrained. That might also help.
But you may need a rejection button too.
Well, thank you so much, sir. I don't know if you have any questions or not today. We are basically trying to look at all the different scenarios. So in your opinion, it should be a cakewalk for NDA. It's just a matter of margin that's going to happen. And going forward, how do you see this making a difference in the running of the country?
Well, I think the Murmu will be, Murmu's rise as president itself is a big message in terms of empowerment of the tribals. So I hear a lot of people in those tribal dominated districts have been delighted at the choice of Murmu. And one thing we'll have to remember, because Yashwant Sinha has been saying that she'll be a rubber stamp president and things like that. Some even called her a very mere statue. One Samajwadi Party leader called her a statue, and things like that. And one Congress spokesperson called her that she represents evil forces. Now, these are not the comments that is going to be go down well with the masses, particularly the tribals who see in her their own sense of I would say empowerment and recognition. The fact is her resident recognition. Now, when it comes to running, Modi would want Murmu to be more active as a president in terms of reaching out to those weaker sections. We have seen Ramnath Kovind do it. Ramnath Kovind too, used to frequently travel. He visited his own village, the Kanpur Dehat, to which he belonged. But of course, Ramnath Kovind did not hunt for headlines. So you didn't see him, trying to, rake up controversies for sake of publicity and that. I would expect Murmu to do, since the BJP is already calling her as, she would be the people's president and things like that. Modi would welcome her to, go about visiting different places, different states, because the prime minister is keen. Whoever is holding a constitutional office has a duty to see how many of the welfare schemes which are being implemented. In fact, in every interaction he has had with the BJP functionaries or with the ministers or with even allies, what he says is, or the members of parliament, because all the thrust of Modi's approach is, look, we have got several schemes going, because there is a lot of welfare orientation to Modi's approach, which is ensure that the crores of money that we spend go to the people who really deserve it. That's why he brought in this disbursement of subsidies through the bank system. That's with the
Jan Dhan
Aadhaar
Yojana.
card. Yeah, Jan Dhan Yojana. See, he didn't put the cart before the horse. He got the Jan Dhan Yojana first. He got every poor people to open an account. Then the money was routed through it, and by that process, a lot of wastage was cut, lot of pilferage was cut. So that's the first thing. The other things is several schemes are on. Schemes for women entrepreneurs, schemes for women self-help groups, the schemes for nutritional improvement for mother and child in several villages. Health programs are on. Now all these programs require a kind of supervision, because Modi wants to move beyond sexy headlines, the sexy, headline-seeking politics. He wants them to focus on this, and that is why he was very upset when comments, the Janvapi controversy went out of hand and took away a lot of focus from what he wanted his partymen to do. That is one of the reasons why he was upset with the controversy involving Nupur Sharma, because he feels the next 2 years he is not going to go on building upon promises. He wants to say whatever has been implemented is there for people to see. And that has worked in Uttar Pradesh. That worked in Uttarakhand. That worked to some extent in Goa. Because a lot of people are talking about the houses that have been built, the Jal Jeevan mission where the water is coming on pipeline. Now, these are all not sexy things. And for a lot of us, these would be, we would wonder are these even milestones to be talked about? But they are milestones. If you consider the kind of backwardness that states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, and Chhattisgarh have had for a long time. See, there is another scheme going on, which is 𝙒𝙗𝙗 ji, what is called the model districts. Like he has picked about 100 and odd districts where very basics were missing for a long time. Those 115 and odd districts out of close to 680 and odd total districts, about 700 districts. In those districts, he got people who once served as collector or district magistrate and asked them to come up with their experience. How did they manage water shortage, irrigation, health facilities, primary health, to talk about the experiences, interact with the current administrators who are there, and take up those schemes in a big way. So these appear as model. So there are several things, which the Prime Minister wants attention, and he would gladly involve the President and the Vice President. Because you would recall, if you look at most of the speeches made by Kovind as President, lot of it are focused on social welfare programs. Because Prime Minister wants that feedback to come. And why not Draupadi Murmu? She is just 64 and full of energy. She would be just sitting in the Rashtrapati Bhavan. She would be she will be about and moving. So I see a scenario where presidents will no longer be seen as just ceremonial heads, and they would play an active part in giving feedbacks. Because we saw Abdul Kalam as president. He was completely different. He was not bogged down by protocol. He rather moved with youth. He did his own. And I expect the Prime Minister Modi would also give ample room to Draupadi Murmu to go about her task, because it would be very unfortunate if Draupadi Murmu were to feel that she's going to be a bird in the golden cage called Rashtrapati Bhavan. So I expect some big changes in the working of the president, which may break conventions, which may break protocol, but then the president will also be seen as a person who is a people's president, not a legacy of the British jar. Not that we had a governor general then and now we have a president. Not that kind of scenario. And every president who has come, Shri Ayerji, including Pranab Mukherjee, sought to change the dynamics in the Rashtrapati Bhavan. So that will happen. So as far as Jagdeep Dhankar is concerned, his task will be running of the parliament, which is the ex officio job, and also step in wherever the president, in terms of foreign visits. As vice president, he would be traveling to different places. But more than that, I think the conduct of the House, which we just discussed, particularly the Rajya Sabha, where important legislations are pending and a lot more need to be done, where he would be expected to ensure there is an orderly conduct, an informed debate, a structured debate, and not man hours are wasted and media comes with stories, so many crores lost because of adjournments.
Thank you very much, Shekhar ji. I think we've covered a lot of ground, probably not covered in mainstream media, but as a practical way, what things are going to be playing out in the next few months. Very, very useful. Viewers, I believe we don't have any questions today, so we can let go of Shekhar ji. Shekhar ji, I'd love to have you back again, maybe in a week's time. I have a topic in mind. I want to discuss that with you, and then we can take that on and go on. It concerns that meeting that you mentioned in Darjeeling that took place between Himanta Biswa Sarma and Mamata Banerjee. It's very important because I see a lot of turbulence happening in Bangladesh. I just covered a video, very, very sad what is happening there. And much of that might get reflected in the border states of India also. Thank you very much, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar.